So, Trump has threatened to leave NATO, and ceasefire is imminent, all types of things. Let's listen to Tim Pool, and I love how he summarizes the situation in the beginning of this video.
This morning, President Donald Trump announced that Iran has requested a ceasefire, which
Iran has not requested a ceasefire. Spoiler. No, only in Trump's head, only in Trump's wishful thinking.
Will consider if they open the Strait of Hormuz, allowing energy to flow freely. But the Trump administration has already claimed regime change has happened.
Yes, victory accomplished. Everything in the war has gone exactly according to Trump's plan.
This new president apparently does want the ceasefire. Now, interestingly, we are hearing that many world leaders will be addressing their nations tonight, despite the fact that we are seeing troop movements and evidence of a potential ground invasion.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And I can already tell you the reason why Trump is threatening to leave NATO and everything is, I can already see it happening, is that some people privately are telling him that these ground invasion that he's planning, there's going to be a lot of casualties and it won't work. That's what people are telling him privately. Of course, those ground invasion is the Pentagon's only answer to his question, like, do something about the Strait of Hormuz. That's what Trump has been screaming at his military since that first weekend. Get it open, do something. And this boots on the ground, what they're cobbling together right now, wherever they end up going, that is their answer to Trump's orders as president to do something. And he's being privately told that the military option that they've come up with for Trump are terrible, and that they won't accomplish anything and troops will die. That's what the warning is being given. And that's why he's throwing a temper tantrum and saying he might leave NATO, because NATO didn't come to bail him out of his war of choice. And all this other stuff. Let's continue the video.
It does also seem like at the same time, we might have a resolution by tonight.
Spoilers. We won't have a resolution by tonight. Trump's going to address the nation at 9 p.m., and I'm going to react to that. Actually, I'm going to react to Asmongold reacting to that. I don't have to worry about finding out where it's being streamed. Being lazy. But that I also want to see Asmon's reaction. So that's probably going to be a separate video on YouTube. Anyway.
Now, we don't know exactly what Donald Trump will announce. It may be, perhaps...
I am very curious to what he will announce, because this is all this fictitious negotiations, his threats of leaving NATO, he's trying to proclaim mission accomplished, although everything is clearly not going according to plan.
Coalition of the willing to enter Iran and once and for all restore the flow of energy to the world. For those who don't know, 20% of the world's natural gas and oil flows through
25% of the world's natural gas
through the Strait of Hormuz. And so long as Iran is disrupting that, everybody has
35% of the world's fertilizer also goes through the Straits of Hormuz. And yes, 20% of the world's oil
to suffer through high energy prices. Keir Starmer is going to speak. Trump is going to speak. Perhaps they come out and say it is time to put a stop to the bullying and ideological extremism of Iran. That being said, with Trump...
Yeah, I don't think people are going to be on board for that, because only way to stop that is a major ground invasion, like 500,000 troops. If you want to actually take Iran, probably actually need 1 million, given the size of Iran and its population. And they have a 1 million man strong army, troops, and then another 1 million militia. So 2 million combatants to take on.
Ideological extremism of Iran. That being said, with Trump's announcement that they are prepared for a ceasefire.
Yes, apparently Iran wants a ceasefire. Did you know that, Proton Snail? I did not know that Iran wanted a ceasefire. Wow. I guess winning the war makes you want to stop it, right?
It may all be coming to a head. Trump's final move. He makes his piece slide across the board, looks into the eyes of the new Iranian leadership and says, what will it be? Shall we send boots on the ground and destroy everything you have?
What? We have 10,000 troops? Maybe against a country of 93 million. How are we threatening with 10,000 troops?
And you, as in the leadership, the wealthy, these fanatics, or shall you remain and play ball? It's
I am hoping that Tim Pool is being sarcastic and he isn't taking Trump's word at face value.
the big ask. It's the art of the deal. But I'm curious, my friends. Trump's ultimate gambit may actually be to jam up the strait. The final
Okay, this is a new one.
move. Trump says, what's the point of NATO? And that membership
Yes, that's another thing he's just said today. What's the point of NATO? U.S. might leave NATO.
beyond recon.
By the way, he can't. He can't leave NATO. There's all types of commitments. There's treaties, and the entire U.S. Elite is in favor of U.S. staying in NATO. The entire political class in the United States. He can't. He won't be allowed to leave NATO. So it's he might want to, but it's not happening.
consideration. Trump is suggesting right now that we will leave NATO once and for all.
It's just blustering. It's just a sign of desperation, unfortunately.
What does that mean? Holy crap, is Donald Trump trying to establish a singular American unipolar dominance that excises?
That was the past. That was unipolar dominance. That was the United States over the last 30 years. It's you can't establish that. It's too late.
Is Europe from our sphere of influence? Why would he do that? Could it be that every single one of these nations, be it Europe, Russia, China, anybody, or I say nations, but the European Union, they will drop to their knees and say, please, America. Could that be the play?
If it's his play, then Trump is even more delusional than I was thinking.
My friends, the US is losing too many aircraft against Iran. We're a month into this war, and these are all the aircraft the US has lost.
That's a lot of aircrafts. These were destroyed in the ground in Saudi Arabia. These were shot down above Kuwait. This one was shot down above Iran. All these also shot down above Iran. Actually, this helicopter, oh yes, that was Iraq, a drone. And so I'm not going to watch the video, but I just thought this was a nice picture summarizing everything we've lost in the air so far. Iran has started targeting U.S. companies in the Gulf states.
Iran is advising employees of American tech companies in the Mideast to leave their workplaces.
The thing is, because of, a U.S. power grid has issues and these AI data centers require so much power, a lot of tech companies were moving into the Middle East where there's a lot of fuel and cheap power. And so in all of these Gulf countries, there are big installations of U.S. companies. And now Iran is declared it's going to target them. Here are the tech companies threatened by Iran, if you're interested. A lot of them. And all of these have interests in the Gulf states. All right, moving on.
There are stories in the newspaper that behind closed doors, the administration is thinking about what's going to happen if it hits $150 a barrel or even $200 a barrel. You want to understand that we're early in this war.
We are.
The idea
And we'll get into what's going on in oil derivatives in just a second.
that this is going to be shut down in the next week or so, and we're going to live happily ever after. This is
Pipe dream.
delusional. This one is just getting started.
True.
And again, the Iranians have us over a barrel. And
Yep. Trump had fucked himself over completely the instant he bombed the supreme leader of Iran.
Annie, you and I are clever individuals. And if we were playing Iran's hand and we were dealing with an adversary like the United States and an adversary like Israel, and we had him over a barrel, we would not let him get off that barrel. We would increase the pressure on them.
Absolutely.
I see these numbers from hedge funds in New York about what this is doing to derivatives in the petroleum market. We've yet to feel it. And
That's what I was saying. The derivatives. They can't afford for the oil market to go right up to 150. That's why it's been held down at under 100, and now it's being held down at 110. Big U.S. banks and financial institutions would go under because there's, You'd have hedge funds go under, and that drag banks under. Banks act as middlemen, like J.P. Morgan in derivative markets. If oil went directly up to 150, it'd bring down the financial system, because every derivative market in history has collapsed at one point or another. By the way, the current derivative market in the United States, in New York, isn't the first one. There was one in London before that. And when they broke the gold standard, when the dollar went off broke its tide to gold, that derivative market collapsed. And there were derivative markets before that. As long as there's been humanity, there's been betting. And derivatives is just a way of betting on commodity prices and other financial metrics. And they've been around forever.
There's no turning back right now. It can't be fixed. And if Iran controls Hormuz and turns it into a toll booth and keeps Arab oil from leaving or highly taxed, it's a new game.
It is indeed a new game, and there's no way to prevent it.
Why isn't oil trading at $130 or maybe even $150?
This is why. Because of the derivative markets, because all hell would be breaking loose in the U.S. financial system. So they've released oil from physical oil onto the market from reserves in all these countries, and they're selling a lot of futures and doing a lot of media. You know, Trump, everything's fine, there's a ceasefire, that type of control, everything to keep oil prices down, at least for a month or two, so that financial markets can reposition themselves.
Per barrel today, right now. Because when you look around the world, there are a lot of indications which strongly suggest crude is being underpriced. And
oh yeah, it's definitely being underpriced, but it's unavoidable, because financial system would break if it wasn't.
Likely drastically underpriced. Some of it has to do with uncertainty. The idea that if the war is over tomorrow and tanker traffic spools up through the Strait of Hormuz, oil price...
Yeah, a tiny bit of it might be that, but it's more fear of contagion in the financial markets, why it's being held down, and coordinated effort by world leaders, media, and everyone just to keep the oil prices down on at 100 or 110 for the moment. Let's see what prices that they at right now. Yep, you see, still holding it down at under 100. Jumped up, but they're keeping it. They're preventing it from going higher.
Prices are going to crash. We know that. However, that doesn't account for the sheer scale, the sheer historical scale, what we're seeing across the entire global energy marketplace. Now, I've got some truly mind-boggling numbers which really illustrate this disparity. Fundamentally, the true price of oil, and I use that term loosely, is probably closer to $130, if not $150 right now today.
Yes, that's what I think. I agree with that. 130 probably, because, like you said, there's still the 1 in a million chance that Strait of Hormuz opens again right away, and then with that possible scenario, yes, 130 is good. Once we have U.S. boots on the ground, then yeah, 150 would definitely be where it should be.
To begin with, what is going on with Hormuz is nothing short of historic. We've never seen anything like this before.
Yes. Last time was the Gulf states deciding to actually cut production. Like, it was conscious decision. This is actual disruption by a foreign adversary. It can't be resolved as easily.
Where a truly staggering, mind-boggling amount of oil just is not flowing. Trust me, the numbers are beyond comprehension. We've already seen it in the fallout, especially around Asia. I've talked about shortages, rationing, national emergencies. I mean, even South Korea is saying they're going to propose some driving restrictions. You name it. This thing is already happening. Then there's the intensity in the market. And in the last couple of days, it has gone completely crazy.
Oh, look at this. Yeah, backwardization. Yep, that is, whenever you have a real shortage of something, it goes into backwardization. That means it costs more to buy the real thing than it does to go out and buy the futures, paper stuff.
The overall price, yes, it's just getting into the low hundreds here in the U.S. with WTI, But the futures curve looks literally insane right now. And I mean here in the US, that's WTI, not just Murban, not just Brent. We've got record spreads in the American oil market, which proves the buying panic is spreading throughout the global system, which is exactly what you would expect given the actual situation. Yet, oil prices aren't even where they were in 2022, despite 4 years ago being nowhere near this much of a global disruption.
I think that the financial institutions knew the Ukraine war was coming, and so they were prepared. And so they let, again, if the U.S. financial system know prices are going a certain direction and prepare themselves ahead of time, they make money. So the Ukraine war is something, most people don't know this, was initiated by the West.
So we really need to go over what it is that must be holding oil prices back and what it is that suggests they should be so much higher, because this thing is a race against time. The longer this goes, the more disruption, the more damage being done to production, the bigger the shortfalls, the longer it takes to alleviate them, the more the consequences are going to spill out and spill over, not just in the energy market, not just across Asia, but it's already happening everywhere. And like I said, the number...
Yesterday, we talked about when the last delivery of Gulf oil is happening. And for the United States, we still have tankers full of Gulf oil coming. Probably the last one to arrive in 10 days. It's after that, and there's nothing coming in afterwards, that prices will really start to trend upwards.
Numbers here are truly staggering. So again, the question I asked in the beginning, why isn't oil trading at $130, if not $150 today? We need to answer both parts of that. Why it's not there and why it maybe should be there. Now, this may sound silly, but President Trump and his statements and his tweets and Truth Socials, they're actually one of the factors that has kept...
Yes, it's a coordinated effort by Trump, by U.S. Other governments, by the financial media to keep people calm, saying this will be over soon. It's a verge of ceasefire. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is the selling of a lot of oil futures and other shenanigans in the market.
Kept oil traders from fully committing to the full shock scenario. No joke, as Trump's
market manipulation, basically.
Predecessor used to say. The president's ability to create uncertainty in the market, downside uncertainty in the market, is minimal as possible.
Again, just highlighting that oil prices are below where they should be, and it's vast market manipulation, including statements by Trump, is the reason for that. And I just want to highlight some of the stuff going on in Israel.
Let's go ahead and put E4 up on the screen. We've got a little bit of polling here about the support for the war, which continues to be extremely high. Very different political landscape in Israel for the war with Iran.
Yes, indeed. But what was shocking in this is coming up here.
A soldier has just put photojournalist Cyril Theophilus in a chokehold, forcing him to the ground.
Don't touch him like that. Give me your phone.
The soldier who assaulted Theophilus continues to demand he turn off his camera before another smacks my phone.
So as you can see, what we have seen happen in the last 24 hours is that settlers came to this area. They settled that hilltop. And now you have a lot of soldiers coming to this area with the Palestinians in this area. They're on top of the home of Imad, the man that we were just speaking to. And we're seeing the soldiers treat the Palestinians in the area as a threat, when really what started this problem was obviously the settlers who came in the middle of the night and took over land that's
exactly
not theirs.
The Palestinians here are
the really interesting part is what the IDF soldier says in a second.
Detained and questioned. Soldiers detain us too and walk us back to our vehicle. They say they're trying to establish order between settlers and Palestinians.
So then let's put the next piece up on the screen, and this is a VO. I'll read you what happens here. This is an exchange between Jeremy and one of the soldiers who is, so they're having this interaction. And Jeremy says they don't have permission to be here, even under Israeli law. He's talking about the illegal settler outpost. He says, even under Israeli law, this is not a legal...
But it will be a legal settlement. As they've just taken over land and the IDF is protecting them because it will be a legal settlement. So Israel is yet seizing more land, as always. Practically all our problems in the Middle East is because of Israel's hunger for land. Another part of that is need for the U.S. dollar hegemony and petrodollar and all that. But a big part of it also is there is the Zionist ideology of trying to create the greater Israel and just seizing land, seizing land, seizing land, seizing land. And here's another fun thing. What happens if Palestinians try to fight back? Well, let's look at this story.
We wanted to turn our attention to this new law that just passed in Israel, which is really first of its kind, which applies effectively the death penalty to one ethnic group over the other. So Palestinians will be slated for death by hanging, and it does not apply with, effectively no exceptions to Jewish Israelis. So let's put this up on the screen from Haaretz. This is something that Ben Gvir, you can see a picture there, has been pushing hard. He was celebrating with champagne yesterday after this.
Israel passes bill mandating death penalty for Palestinians convicted of lethal acts of terrorism.
Monstrous, ghoulish bill passed through the Israeli Knesset. So Israel passes bill mandating death penalty for Palestinians convicted of lethal acts of terrorism. The bill's wording creates a distinction designating it almost exclusively for Palestinian terror, while the ideological burden of proof it sets is expected to make its application to Jewish nationalist terror difficult to impossible. So let me give you guys a little bit.
So it's a law aimed at only non-Jewish people.
Bit of background, because even that headline is a bit misleading. So they say, okay, this is going to apply to Palestinians convicted of lethal acts of terrorism. That makes it sound like there's like a real judicial process where people get to go and they get to prove their innocence, and that it's only by and large going to be people who are definitely guilty of these horrific crimes who are going to be subjected to the death penalty. Even if that was the case, the fact that you have this blatantly apartheid law that only applies to Palestinians and not to Jewish Israelis, that is unacceptable to begin with. But we also have to keep in mind the people that this would apply to. These are West Bank Palestinians, by and large, who
people whose land are being seized as we speak.
Who are convicted, tried in military courts that are effectively kangaroo courts.
Yeah, it's basically, it's ethnic cleansing. I don't like genocide because genocide, it's a very slow genocide if it's a genocide in Gaza. It's more, and versus, just going down and mowing down people with, it's a very slow genocide going on by Israel. I think ethnic cleansing is a better word. Still terrible. And let's finish tonight with this video from Tucker.
This loss, and unfortunately I think we can say already, it's hard to imagine getting out of this without being diminished.
Yeah, I mean, what is a victory here? Right. I mean, it's also a terrible situation where victory might be the worst case scenario. I mean, victory, if the whole goal is to topple the regime, you're like, okay, but every other time we've toppled the regime in this neck of the woods, it's led to migrant crises and death and terrorism.
You can't topple a regime in the Persian Gulf because the world's energy supply needs to move through it. You have to extract it, refine it, make it into petrochemicals, do whatever, fertilizer, do whatever you want in the Persian Gulf, and then you have to get it out of the Persian Gulf. So that means you have to have a controlling authority. You have to have strong governments there, or else some rebel group, Houthis with drones, will shut the whole thing down. Yeah. You can't have chaos in Iran.
Yeah, they call it the Persian Gulf for a reason.
Exactly. Even if you call it the Arabian Gulf, the other half is Persian. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Chaos in the Persian Gulf means no energy or fertilizer from the Persian Gulf, period.
Yes.
So you're going to piracy there. So the option to that is keeping an Iranian regime in place, and that means that Iran is more powerful than it was when the war started.
Yeah.
This is also obvious, unless you nuke them, which is, I think, an option. And then you set off a chain.
No one's talking about it, but if things continue on course, and Israel keeps getting bombed back into the Stone Age, we'll see.
In reaction that, is the worst thing imaginable. So anyway, I think there's no way to see this as a win. I pray it is, but I don't see it. Yeah. If it is a loss, maybe that is not all bad.
Trump calls it a win, but we can't afford victories like this. They're too costly.
For the U.S.?
Well, there is I think sometimes things need to get really bad before they get better. That things need to get bad so that people wake up even more. There's no question people have woken up a lot, but maybe people just need to get angrier, and I don't know. I don't know what
I'm trying to see this in the fullness of history and God's plan, but because it feels like such a disaster, it's affecting my sleep. I love America. I have kids. I don't want this to happen. I'm not in control, obviously. So, but I do think that
none of us are.
You're often surprised by the downstream results of things. I think people who return from Normandy would be shocked by the condition of the United States and Great Britain 80 years later. They are shocked. If you see them interviewed, some 100-year-old guys like, we died for this?
Yeah, no, it's totally. I mean, talk about just disgracing their sacrifice.
It's the greatest disgrace. Our self-abasement is an insult to their to their sacrifice on our behalf. But I wonder if the opposite isn't also true, that maybe in your defeat, there are things that, I know this is true for me.
I think Tucker Carlson does know about deep state, and he does suspect there is a deep state. He just doesn't openly talk about it. But I think it's like I was back in 2010. It's just, there's just so much going on. There has to be something going on behind the scenes. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Every time I've gotten sick or gotten fired, like I understand the world better and I become more joyful and stronger. Do you feel that?
Yeah, no, I know for sure. I mean, many times in my life.
Like he knows.
You learn a lot more from your losses.
Yeah, your defeats are actually your victories in
that's
that respect.
Right. That's right. But the problem is just man, we're just playing with fire with this thing because it's so dangerous. It's
What worries you most?
And he knows if he's, like you said earlier, he's calling for a new 9/11 commission. He knows.
Well, I guess I'd say number one, what we're doing to those people over there, I mean, I think is just like horrible. And I don't say this as like, I'm not trying to like virtue signal that I care so much more than other people, but like when your government takes your money and just starts slaughtering people in poor countries compared to us, there's just so.
He gets it as a much bigger, better take on the overall picture of U.S. and what's going on than Asmongold, unfortunately. Asmongold, when it comes to gaming, he and anti-woke, he's right on track, but maybe immigration too. But everything else, he's captured in a lot of ways. Like he believes in global warming and a bunch of. He's for universal income. He doesn't understand how. As someone who knows about economics and stuff like that, universal income. Oh, it's terrible. It makes people not work.
So profound.
What you do to others will be done to you. Yeah, that's a physics principle. You can't get away from that. So that's just true.
Well, imagine like there was a guy who was
yes,
like
a few years behind. And on the Epstein and Pizzagate, at least on that area, he's more up to date. So that's one good thing.
He had molested a bunch of like Iraqi children or a bunch of Iranian children, and then you were like, "Well, I'm gonna have him babysit my kids." He only does it over there. You know what I mean? Like he only you're like, what? No, dude. He's hurt children. You can't let him anywhere near your children. Right. Okay, well, these same monsters in government are the ones who are ruling over me and my family and my country. Right. And the idea that you just go kill, like, I know I said this on Rogan's show the other day about the school that we had where he killed like 165 or 170 little girls, and then people, give each other, those numbers haven't been verified. That's just the claim of the Iranian government. He goes, well, our government's not denying it. And in fact, they did an investigation and concluded it was almost certainly us. It was a Tomahawk missile. What's the question here? We know where this came from. The only question left is like, who gave it that coordinates, or did it miss, or was that intentional, whatever. But like, kill a whole bunch of 8-year-old girls? I mean, Jesus, man, is there anything more evil you could do than that? So just on a basic human level, there's like this.
Anyone who would do that, I think it was clearly accidental. But I also think, having done a lot of accidental things, it's essential to apologize for it. Yeah. And anyone who doesn't apologize for it's a dangerous person.
Well, also,
if you'll do that to them, you'll do it to my kids.
Yeah.
Yes, and it also, it's...
And Trump can't apologize, can't admit that he hit a girls' school. It is just not. That's one problem with Trump's. He can't acknowledge mistakes.
Stretches the definition of accidental a little bit, because even if very specifically, like we were trying to hit this building, but instead we hit this building, and there's a point I've been making largely through the Israel's destruction of Gaza, which was not that at all. They were just leveling the place.
Yes, they just leveled every building.
You go, look, man, like you start dropping bombs on people, you start blowing things up, and innocent people are going to end up dying in that. So in that sense, it is intentional. And maybe
and every time we hit civilian infrastructure, I mean, United States, Israel, we don't give any advance warning. We just blow it up during the day to ensure maximum civilian casualties. Iran, when it retaliates, it says its target. It says, like, stay away from these financial institutions, stay away from this desalination plants. And that's why you don't hear stories of hundreds of innocent civilians dying in the Gulf. Of course, Iran doesn't give... It sometimes gives those same warnings with regard to Israel, but not always. But the Gulf states, it tries to.
You didn't mean to hit that exact, target or kill that many people. But, like, I'm just saying, if you blew up a building, that you suspected somebody else was in, but then it turned out that there were a bunch of little kids there, it's still a pretty profound crime. But then, of course, on top of that, I really worry about getting trapped into a broader war, a wider war. There's no exit. I'm not saying that I think this is going to be like Iraq or Afghanistan. I think already this is very different than Iraq and Afghanistan.
very different in that we're getting screwed and we're losing. In those two other wars, we were never at any point losing. This is just straight up. We're getting fucked. All our bases across the Middle East are getting leveled. The missiles keep raining down over the skies of Israel and the Gulf states. And they still control the Strait of Hormuz, and we have no way of stopping them from doing that. So, yeah, we're losing. We're just losing.
Iraq and Afghanistan did not have the ability to do what Iran is doing right now,
Yes.
for one. Number two,
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to be that. I think it would be more the Libya or Syria model than the Iraq or Afghanistan model, which did require a small amount of ground forces. So we used head-chopping bin Ladenites in both of those cases and put the bin Ladenites in power.
Yes, but Syria is tiny compared to Iran. And Iran has a huge, 2 million, basically, fighting force men. You can't, no small insurgency is going to do anything.
Or in Syria. But just to be clear, our country would not survive another Iraq.
And Iran has allies like Iraqi militias, the Houthis, Hezbollah. We're not taking. There's no way to overthrow the Iran regime at this point.
There's no United States of America coming out of that. We don't have a 20-year catastrophic ground invasion in us. It will bankrupt the country. It will destroy the country culturally. So that's a very scary thing. We don't have, in the launch of the global war on terrorism, we were coming.
So we have a humiliating retreat in us. We have a small, completely failed ground invasion coming up, and then humiliating retreat. That is the optimistic outcome. The pessimistic outcome is we have a completely failed ground invasion, followed by 20, 50 nukes from Israel on Iran. And then all hell breaks loose.
Out of the 1990s. This was a different country in the 1990s, and anyone who was alive then knows this.
Lived here.
Yes, different people, different culture, different economic realities, different military realities. Now, then the other thing that I really, really worry about with all of this is that we've never dealt with a full, Shiite jihad war against the West. Our beef was always with the Sunni radicals. Those were the terrorists we had to worry about, the Al-Qaeda and ISIS and stuff like that. And that was quite a big problem. We had a lot of terrorist attacks in America and in Europe.
I'll respond to that after the video because it's a little bit off topic.
Particularly ISIS-inspired attacks, Al-Qaeda as well. And, so I've kind of called out some of these people. I'll do it again here because they're some of the biggest frauds in the country. These pretend intellectuals like Sam Harris and Gad Saad and guys like this who have spent a career demonizing Muslims. Their entire career has been talking about what irrational, violent people Muslims are, how awful the religion is, and look,
the strand of Muslim that the Gulf states, our puppets are, that Saudi Arabia has spent decades funding extremist religious schools across the world, like in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and there are some really, truly radical Muslim of that faith. And yes, those guys are insane, but the rest of Muslim, the Muslim in Iran, they're very anti-Israel for obvious reasons, but they are not ISIS. They are not the ones that genocided Christians in Syria. That is the Saudi, our version, our terrorist Islam that we used also in Russia, in the Caucasus. We used in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union. Yeah, we've been using that strand of radical terrorist Islam as our weapon throughout the world. And that one is terrible, but we created, we reinforced it. We made it that horrible terrorist version of Islam so it'd be a more useful tool to fight wars against the Soviets in Afghanistan and terrorism in Caucasus against Russian government.
There's been some points that I agree with them on. If someone writes a cartoon about Muhammad, you don't have the right to kill them. Sorry. Right. You want to be in the West. These are our rules here.
Exactly.
We value free speech, and I can make a cartoon about whatever the hell I want to make a cartoon about. Okay, but if you spent your whole career arguing how violent and irrational the Muslims are, what does killing an Ayatollah mean? That's not just a political figure.
Yeah.
You murder an Ayatollah and his entire family. And we've already had a couple terrorist attacks over here that at least seem like, there was the shooting in Austin, Texas, that came like the day after we launched the war. And the guy was wearing like an Allah Akbar t-shirt. I'm assuming that might be related. And so, then you have this real issue of like, there's, unfortunately, in the...
Well, I think I'm going to end it here for today. A lot of stuff's happening. It's probably going to be an exciting end to the week because I have a feeling that the ground invasion is going to begin because it's a 3-day weekend. Friday is off. So considering Trump likes to do stuff when the market isn't open, I'm thinking that Thursday night or Friday is when the ground invasion will happen. So we can look forward to that. In any case, please like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.